Chair Chen, you're back to okay. There you are. All right.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Board Chair Linda Chin. First, I'd like to recognize Hedge. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Cameron, from Thomas Jefferson Elementary Middle School, and his director, Miss Sherry Norwitz, for his performance of Toby Fox Undertale. Thank you for sharing your talents with us this evening. I'd like to also welcome you all to the public board meeting of the Baltimore City Board of School Commissioners. A reminder, if you have not yet done so, please to mute your phone. Anyone who does not mute their phone may be muted by the call moderator or removed from the call. And additionally, I need to ask, if you are not a board member or the CEO and her staff, if you would please turn your video off, so that we will be able to see the information that will be on the screen. I'm going to start now by doing the roll call for board members to identify who is on the call. Reminder, board members, to identify yourself first before speaking for the record during the meeting. Commissioner Bondima?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
I think she's in it. She just was having problems getting back in it, I think.
Okay. Commissioner McFadden? Has he joined us? Okay. Commissioner Reed? Okay. Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
I see Commissioner McFadden. Okay. Commissioner Roberts? Commissioner Sykes? And I am here. I'm going to go back one more time, make sure I didn't miss anyone. Is Commissioner James here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Commissioner Reed? Commissioner Roberts? Or Commissioner Sykes? So I have 8, I believe, and 3 I have absent. Is that correct? Okay. Is there a motion to reopen the meeting?
So moved, McFadden.
Thank you, Commissioner McFadden. Is there a second?
Second, Brooks.
Thank you. And those in favor, Commissioner Bond,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson.
Yes.
Okay. I'm in favor. I'm checking to see if others have joined. Okay. So we have 7. This motion passes. 7 in favor and 3 absent. Unfortunately, this evening I am going to ask if you will join with me for a moment of silence. We'd like to take time to recognize the passing of 2 city schools employees. Each of these individuals was committed to supporting our students through their work. They will be remembered fondly by the greater city schools community, and tonight we also send our deepest condolences to their friends and families. I want to inform you of the passing of Matthew Croson, who served in city schools for 18 years and 7 months as an elementary teacher at Hamilton Elementary Middle School and as an assistant principal at Roland Park Elementary and Bard High School Early College in Baltimore. Mr. Croson unfortunately departed on April 17, 2021. It is also with deep regret that we inform you of the passing of Luvonda Felton, who served in city schools for 12 years and 4 months as a teacher, an elementary teacher at Belmont Elementary and Monarch Academy. In August 2019, she was promoted to Staff Specialist Title I in the Data Monitoring and Compliance Department at the district office. Mrs. Felton unfortunately departed on May 16, 2021. Will you please join me for a moment of silence in remembrance of these two staff members? Thank you. And now, is there a motion to approve the prior open session minutes?
So moved, Richardson.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Bandima.
Thank you. And those in favor, Commissioner Bandima,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson,
Yes.
I'm in favor. I'm going to check one more time. Is Commissioner Reed with us? Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
There she is. Okay. And Commissioner Sykes. So we have, this motion passes. We have 7 in favor and 3 absent. Is there a motion now to approve the closed session summaries?
So moved, Brooks.
Thank you, Commissioner Brooks. Is there a second?
Second, James.
Second, Richardson.
James, thank you. All in favor, Commissioner Bandima,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden,
Yes. Yes.
okay, I'm sorry, Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
okay, and I'm in favor. Anyone opposed or abstaining?
Richardson's in favor too.
Okay. I have 8 in favor and 1 absent. Thank you. Tonight, I would like to acknowledge a gift of $750 worth of books from Miss Shirley's Restaurant and Aaron Madras, who's the author of Austin's Allergies, to our library services. Thank you all on behalf of all of our students. The other just comments that I would like to make is just to encourage the community to continue to participate in the R3 conversations and engagements that we're having. We have now moved into the second phase, and all of us want to be very much a part of the input into the final plan for what we feel will be the best way to have our students fully re-enter back into school and to do the things that we need to do for them to make up in some ways for the past disruption in their regular instruction. So please continue to look at the schedule for those meetings. Many of you will probably see some additional meetings at your schools, and I would encourage you to take part in those. This is, we're into the last 2 weeks of school, and as we found out this week with some of the heat-related changes, summer is upon us, but please, if you have not considered it and have gotten information from your school and want to take advantage of summer programming, please do so and give your kids that opportunity during this summer. Is there a motion now to approve the PEP report?
So moved, Madam Chair. McFadden?
Thank you. Is there a second?
James, second.
Okay, I heard Commissioner James. And those in favor, Commissioner Bondima,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
and I'm in favor. I'm checking one more time for, all right, I don't think I've missed anyone. No one then has opposed or abstained, so this motion passes, 8 in favor and 1 absent. So at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Santelises for CEO comments.
Great. Thank you very much, Chair Chinya and the board. Good evening, everyone. I would like to invite Chief Grant Skinner for this evening's PEP.
Thank you, Dr. Santelises. This evening, we have 3 appointments. First, Darren Brozine, interim principal at Baltimore Design School, is appointed principal at Baltimore Design School effective July 1st. Next, Kimberly Hill Miller, principal at Lockerman Bundy Elementary School, is reassigned principal at Mary Ann Winterling Elementary School at Bentlow effective July 1st. And lastly, Mark Etienne, ILED for elementary and middle schools, is reassigned Executive Director, Teaching and Learning, effective July 19th. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Grant Skinner. And I would like to give a little bit more background on our appointments this evening. Darren Brozine, as Chief Grant Skinner noted, did transition last fall from the assistant principal role to the role of interim principal at Baltimore Design School. He was previously a model and lead teacher at Forest Park Senior High School for 12 years. Principal Brozine studied at Washington College, trained with the Baltimore City Teaching Residency, and earned a master's degree from Johns Hopkins University. After his interim service at Baltimore Design School this school year, we are pleased to announce he will continue as the school's principal. Congratulations again, Principal Brozine. Next, Kimberly Hill Miller has been recognized as the leader who wrote and produced a music video with her students to help them prepare for one of their assessments. Today, we are pleased to announce her as the next principal for Mary Ann Winterling Elementary School at Bentaloo. Ms. Hill Miller first joined City Schools in 2007. In 2013, she became principal of Lockerman Bundy Elementary School, a close neighbor of Mary Ann Winterling. During her 8 years of service at Lockerman Bundy, she earned the distinction of a transformational principal, a status shared with only 35 other principals in city schools. Congratulations, Principal Hill Miller. And then finally, Mark Etienne has more than 20 years experience working to ensure students of all backgrounds maximize their potential, regardless of their circumstance or context. In 2014, Mark joined City Schools as the Executive Director of Principal Support for Network 13, directly supporting our 30+ charter schools. In 2015, he became an ILED, or Principal Supervisor, and has since led and supported the principals and leadership teams of a dozen schools in Community Learning Network 4. In fall 2018, Mark served as the acting chief of schools and led the school's office through the opening of the school year. He has also served on many teams and committees, including the math team, core program team, strategic equity task force, blueprint strategy team, the Wallace Foundation pipeline work group, the charter school advisory board, and now the math work group of our R3 initiative. We are excited about Mr. Etienne's continued leadership in the Executive Director of Teaching and Learning role. Congratulations. Next, I would really like to begin my official comments this evening by recognizing the generosity of Steve and Renee Bashotti in donating more than $4 million to establish the Ozzie Newsome Scholars Program. The Scholars Program will fund scholarships for 5 city schools graduates annually at each of Maryland's 4 historically Black colleges and universities, Bowie State University, Coppin State University, Morgan State University, and University of Maryland Eastern Shore, for a total of 80 scholarships over 4 years, at a total investment of up to about $50,000 each. In addition, every Ozzie Newsome Scholar will participate in College Bound's College Completion Program, where they will be guided by a college completion advisor, work with a peer and adult mentor, and join other city schools graduates in an overnight transition to college workshop. Finally, the scholars will also participate in 3 annual skill building seminars. I am truly grateful to the Bashottis for their generosity and targeted support for our students and their families. We appreciate the recognition of the need for whole support for our young people and the participation of both K-12 and higher ed institutions, and really just want to thank the entire Ravens organization for their long-standing and continued partnership with Baltimore City Schools. Thank you again. Now, I would like to welcome Ms. Sophia Minot and Dr. Andrea Bowden to give us a final update of this year's United Way City Schools fundraising campaign.
Hello, everyone. I'm not sure if you can see me. Can you hear me at least?
Yes, good evening, everyone. We have a short PowerPoint. This has been a very challenging year in so many ways, and it was also challenging for United Way. However, the generous staff members in city schools contributed $58,388 to the United Way. This far exceeds any city agency, and we are extremely pleased. Next slide, please. We want to thank Dr. Santelises, who kicked off the drive. This was a totally virtual drive, so it all was through communications, through principals, through Chief Davis to the principals, through the coordinators in the schools. And again this year, we received a great deal of support from Sophia Minot from the United Way. She is a wonderful supporter of city schools and understands us and how we operate. Next slide. The United Way serves over 100 different organizations with partial funding and other major initiatives with full funding. The Maryland Helpline, and health, a huge COVID-19 support for our community. Housing, which has been very strained during the pandemic. Education, including 2 major centers, one in Southwest Baltimore and one in West Baltimore, for parenting teams. And employment, training people for jobs now and in the future. Next slide. Perhaps the best way to characterize the generosity of city schools is the percentage of staff members at a particular site that gives something to United Way. I've been working with United Way as a volunteer for 3 years, and every year, Eager Street Academy has had 100% of its staff members donate to United Way. And that is because of the leadership of Dr. Laura Deanna and her coordinator. This year it's Tiffany Clark. Stadium School has a 30.65% participation. Hamden Elementary, another school that is a repeat top school, 17.54. Sinclair Lane, 12.2%, and Marie G. Faring, 10.47%. We look at 10% as the goal for a giving school. Next, please. Central office participation. Some central offices have fewer staff members than schools, but participation is no less important. Research and Evaluation Officer, 66.67%, Enrollment Choice and Transfer, 44.44%, Teacher Support Systems, 33.33%, Human Resource Management, 28.57%, Gifted and Talented Instruction, 25%, and Long Range Compliance, 25%. And we congratulate the coordinators in those areas. These coordinators serve more than one cost center. Next, please. Sophia, I'd like you to speak on behalf of United Way.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I want to thank definitely Dr. Andrea Bowden for all the support she's given us. I'm having a little technical difficulty here, so I'm not sure if you can actually see my video, but just want to thank, Dr. Bowden, Dr. Santelises, Jim, Britton, everyone. Just want to thank you because Baltimore City Public Schools every year really answers the call for supporting United Way. You're actually a group of one of our most generous campaigns. We've actually blown it out, raising almost $60,000 this year. We appreciate it because that has been a very different campaign. But just so you know, there are a couple things that we are, just so you wonder where your money's going. United Way has a new initiative that we're in the planning stages of called Young Men's United, which is actually going to be focused on, sponsoring around 1,500 men's and tracking them over maybe a 10-year period from high school level, maybe 10th, 11th grade on through college and hopefully their career paths. And we will hopefully have a network of people who do the financing and funding, as well as mentors that support them through that program. So United Way is a great steward of your generosity and your donations. And we want to thank you all, like I said, for every year really just answering the call. And I want to respect your time. So that's it. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you both for your just tireless work on this, even in the midst of the challenges of the last year, in supporting our efforts. We know that United Way is an incredibly valued partner for so many of our young people and families. So I just want to thank the entire Baltimore City Schools community, everyone who gave, everyone who contributed, and then really most importantly, want to thank both Sophia and Dr. Bowden just for your continued support of this. So thank you both. Next, I really want to thank the entire City Schools community for your participation in the initial set of our R3 meetings, our Reconnect, Restore, and Reimagine initial input sessions. Staff has taken that input. We are pleased to let you know that now we are ready for feedback. So if there are changes, other elements that you see are missing, this is really a great time to get some of that feedback. We'll be posting some of the draft thinking of and planning from our work groups again before we do our final. So I just want to invite everybody, all of our stakeholders, to continue to let us know your reactions to some of that thinking so that we can continue to make sure that we're responding to the new ways that we need to be serving, but also those areas that we really see as being high impact strategies. So want to thank everybody for your participation thus far. We had meetings in every one of our, excuse me, legislative districts, and are looking forward to more reaction to now some of that early response to your thinking. So thank you again for that. And our final plan will be announced near the end of July. As you know, the CDC has approved COVID vaccinations for young people aged 12 and above. And as I announced at our last board meeting, I'm really pleased that our continued partnership with Baltimore City Health Department means that we will be able to continue even throughout the summer to help families know where to identify vaccinations. Will be part of those efforts as we really make a push going into the fall for young people to also be vaccinated. We're also pleased that we will be partnering with a number of our schools and some community partners. The first round of vaccination clinics started this week. And a clinic is scheduled at John Rura Elementary, Baltimore City College on Thursday, and clinics on Friday at Benjamin Franklin High School and Graceland Park, O'Donnell Heights. Again, in addition to these sites, Baltimore City Health Department is opening more sites across the city. Vaccinations are free. There's free transportation to and from your vaccination site if you need that. And vaccination, even though they're taking place in schools, are open to the larger committee, to the larger community around the schools. And just want to remind everyone that for students under the age of 16, so those students between ages 12 and 15, you will need a parent or guardian to accompany the student in order to take part in the vaccinations. But thank you to everyone who's working to make sure that our community has access to those vaccinations, particularly our young people and their families, as we begin preparing for increased in-person learning in the fall. With regards to some of the HVAC updates, what I'd like to say that, with regards to the very hot weather this week, the last full week of schools, I think it's an important time to just remind everyone that 5 years ago, a matter of fact, my first year as CEO, we received the governor's mandate requiring the district to install air conditioning. 75 buildings did not have air conditioning. In the last 5 years, despite this being an unfunded mandate, we have installed air conditioning in 51 schools. As of today, we have 24 schools that still do not have air conditioner. Of those, 10 are currently in construction, 6 are in design, and 4 are in planning, leaving about 4 that are being reviewed for next steps. We have 5 charter schools that do not have air conditioning, but we will continue to work with those charters to see how we can best support their facility needs as well. I also just want to flag for everyone that we also still have facilities with aging systems beyond their useful life cycle or have HVAC issues due to other failing systems within the facility. So pending our CIP requests and for other infrastructure funding support, we also have an evaluation of those schools. And in the interim, our operations staff will continue to do a major lift in yeoman's work to continue to repair systems. In summary, I just want to say that our operations and facilities management teams have done a remarkable job resolving heat issues despite the fact that our funding of city schools infrastructure continues to be inadequate. But we will continue to make progress with the resources in hand, just as we have done over the past years, because we know that our young people deserve first-rate 21st century schooling and classroom options. And then finally, the issue of state certification for teachers has been raised as an area of concern in recent meetings. Tonight, I've invited Chief Human Capital Officer Jeremy Grant Skinner to join us tonight to review our progress in the certification process. So I want to invite Chief Grant Skinner this evening.
Thank you again, Dr. Santelices. I need a moment to pull up the right screen. Okay, thank you again. We, as Dr. Santelices shared, have received, oops, I lost my screen. We have received comments recently in a couple of board meetings related to certification service, and they followed up on some requests made in December of 2020 by the Baltimore Teachers Union. And we have scheduled, at the request of the board chair and the board, a fuller presentation on certification for an upcoming board meeting scheduled in late July. Meanwhile, today, in advance of that, we want to provide some key information about certification service. We have a couple of timelines that we communicate to our employees and have communicated to our union partners as well that relate to certification service. The first is that the Maryland State Department of Education has 2 windows for certification renewals every year. And those are the 90 days leading up to June 30th and the 90 days leading up to December 31st. MSDE has delegated the responsibility for certificate renewals to each local school system, and therefore our staff in city schools provide those updates as representatives of the state in those moments. Separate from this, the Human Capital Office received a request earlier this year and agreed to set an expectation for staff to respond to other certification questions. These are not a renewal submission, but a question within 10 school days. And we have asked our representatives of our union partners to elevate any situations where that 10-day timeline has not been met so that we can make sure that we circle back and provide a response. We have received a few dozen of those elevated requests in recent months, and our team is working to make sure in those cases we can respond as soon as possible. In the context of these timelines, particularly the 90-day windows, when we look back to recent years, every year City Schools does successfully process nearly 2,000 certificate renewals for our educators each year. One of the areas that we have been focused on and are focusing on is ensuring that we have the right staff in place to provide support for certification. A little background here is that the Maryland State Department of Education actually gives a couple of its own kinds of certifications to individuals who work in district offices that allow them to make updates to the MSDE certificate of employees. In our case, we have one staff member who has the most senior status from MSDE. And this is actually why employees will see that the actual processing in the MSDE system and in our local system is done by this staff member. That said, we have been working to expand the capacity of individuals who actually can go in the MSDE system and make those updates. And 2 team members, our Director of Recruitment and Selection and our Manager of Teacher Recruitment and Selection, just received notice from MSDE last week that they've successfully completed the training program to receive a lower level status for processing certifications. And we are currently looking to hire an additional individual who already has that most senior level status to process these. I share that context because we know that we need to build up the capacity for our team members to serve that specific role with MSDE. And at the same time, our model is to provide customer service support through our broader employee engagement department as well. And we're working with MSDE to provide additional training to those team members as well. I want to take a moment to highlight conditional certificates in particular. These are certificates that are provided for the first 2 years of an employee's service in a Maryland district when that individual has not gone through a traditional teacher preparation program. In these cases,
dark clouds.
Teachers are, I'm hearing some other things. In these cases, employees currently may complete courses that are required for them to transition to a professional certificate with one or more colleges and universities of their choice. And we've spent much time with one of our team members in the last year working with institutions of higher education to develop partnerships to support teachers specifically with a conditional certificate. Charlamar Douglas came to this work with City Schools originally through participation in our Black Teacher Recruitment and Retention Working Group. And she has been working across the school year to provide direct support to conditionally certified teachers and to build these partnerships with colleges and universities. As we look ahead, recognizing that the volume of options available to our conditionally certified teachers actually makes it more difficult to navigate their certification journey, we are planning to leverage these partnerships to require new conditionally certified teachers to enroll in a program with one of those partners beginning next year. The final slide I want to share is just to highlight a couple of other quite technical aspects of our work where we've made improvements and leveraged flexibilities that MSDE provides for certification over the last year. The first has had a significant impact on our educators because it has included thousands of our teachers who, with a new CPD or credit option from MSDE, have been able to complete the full requirement they need to renew their next certificate, whether it's this year or some year in the future, just by participating in our continuity of learning plan over the last year. Another place where we made a technical change to support our employees is to leverage the MSDE senior status or senior waiver to be able to automatically renew professional certificates of employees who are at least 55 years old or have more than 20 years of service. And then we also have updated the way our employees can provide transcripts so they can provide them electronically, which brought us a little more up to date and also was really important during the period of building closures that we experienced starting last spring. So with those updates, want to reiterate that we will be back with a fuller presentation in July. And thank you, Dr. Santelices.
Great, thank you, Chief Grant Skinner. Really appreciate that update. And with that, I will turn it back to Chair Chinya. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Santelices. And at this time, then I'm going to move and we will be having a presentation for a first reader for policy IJOA, field trips.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Dr. Lisa Smith-Sherrod, and I'm the Director of Student and School Operations Support in the Chief of Schools Office. And I have been working very closely with Alexa Murray in the Office of Legal Counsel to update our policy around student field trips. The purpose of this policy is to ensure that students have a well-balanced education. And in order to do so, they have the skills-based appropriate instruction and then community interaction and support and opportunities to extend the learning process outside of the classrooms. And field trips are an integral part of their instructional program. Field trips allow students to apply and observe classroom concepts in the outside world. They learn from outside experts, engaged in experiential and outdoor learning opportunities, and they are able to practice self-discipline. Field trips will also give students the opportunity to use their developing social skills and interact appropriately with other students and adults outside of the classroom. Our school board does recognize the importance of field trips to support the instructional program and wants to ensure that that all students receive these cultural experiences firsthand. And to that extent, they must support the mission and goals of the school system and provide for the safety and welfare of the participants, the board, and the board of Baltimore City Public Schools, sponsorship of school participation in educational field trips. And so the undergirding beliefs around field trips that support this policy are that the overall success of the field trip is really dependent upon a coordination of collaborative planning between the teacher and the teacher in charge and the school community, and has clear objectives. Student participation in field trips is voluntary, and then students will not be penalized based on non-participation. No student may be denied participation in a field trip that directly relates to the instructional program due to financial circumstances or disability. And then some updates to IJOA. This is very small. I'm not going to read each and every one of the updates, but just the broader categories. We moved these definitions from originally they were in the administrative regulation, and we moved them over to the policy. So a clear definition of chaperones, also student chaperones that are getting their service learning hours, the educational field trips, which include extended learning opportunities, foreign travel, wilderness exploration, and then out-of-state travel. And then a listing of our forms have also been included. These are pre-approved forms that the schools need to use in order to make their supervisors aware of the field trips. And we have included based on the feedback of teachers, links to these forms within the documents. And so it's not a whole list of separate documents, but they actually have the links. And then we have detailed parent and guardian and included that language inside of the IJOA policy. Each type of field trip is designed. So student activity trips are trips that are not related to the educational curriculum, and they're not sponsored by city schools. And so these trips should not or will not occur during the school day. And during the school day, from the opening bell to the end of the school day is considered a during the school day field trip. And then we talked about extended field trips, overnight trips, and then non-school day field trips. And then a comprehensive definition of the teacher in charge has been included. And it also aligns with the JIH policy and administrative regulation around student search and seizure. Field trip, the standards for field trips have been expanded, and all field trips must have a teacher in charge. We outline the chaperone to student ratios and define those. Health and safety considerations, transportation, the approval process, equity, parental consent, exclusion due to suspension or expulsion, and then cancellation. Foreign travel field trips. And so we have defined the approval process and then the information that is required for parents. We want to reiterate that the board does not assume financial liability for field trips, but the board does encourage parental involvement on all levels. For each school year, we are going to be required to submit a report to the board that lets them know the number and types of field trip per school. And this report will be submitted no later than October 31st of each school year. As far as the administrative regulation, the following updates have been made. Like we said before, the definitions were moved to the policy. Language throughout has been changed to reflect the current supervisory structure for principals. And so it's been changed to ILED, or Instructional Leadership Executive Director and Director of Operator Support for Charter Schools. We added a reference to the search and seizure policy and regulation. We added a list of accompanying forms, and as we said, they are linked in the document. Minimum chaperone to student ratios are included, and then foreign travel has been extended to middle school students. This is just our project plan. We have consulted with several stakeholders, finance, transportation, principals, managers, ILEDs, the chief of schools, the CAO's office, school health services, special ed, PCAB, family community engagement, communications, ONI, equity, PIZZAZ, and BTU. So we really did a comprehensive look at we allowed these people, these organizations and these individuals to provide feedback about the policy to ensure that it was a comprehensive update. Are there any questions?
I see Commissioner Griffin.
Yes, hi. Thank you so much for the presentation. I think that the policy is very well developed, and I was happy to see a lot of the definitions being super clear. I only have one question and also a recommendation. I was curious around the use of the word foreign versus international for travel. And for me, I would lean more toward international, thinking about the definition of the word that we're using and where we're going in terms of using those words in travel as well. So
good. We appreciate that, and I'm taking note.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other question, comments, or observation from board members? Okay. All right, if not, thank you very much. I'm looking, I don't see a hand going up. Okay.
All right.
I know this is the first reader, so I know will be accepting feedback, and it'll come back to us again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Board members, at this time, I'm going to review the consent agenda, as we always do before public comment. Please let me know if you would like to have an item removed, and state what your question might be for the staff so they can be prepared to answer those. I don't, unless I'm looking again to be certain, I don't see that has the student commissioner joined us, Mr. Gant? I don't see him listed.
No, he actually, I shot him a text and he said he's on his way to take his SAT, so that's why he couldn't make it.
Oh my goodness, that's much more important than being with us right now. Okay, So I'm just going to go through the list, and folks, let me know if you would like to have an item pulled. I will tell you that item 8.08 is going to be pulled. That's the new charter application for presentation, right? So item 8. Let me make sure I'm going to tell you what they are. 8.01, which is policy GCLE, telecommuting, which is the second reader. Item 8.02, gifts and donations. Item 8.03, which is a fiscal year 21 quarter 3 budget amendment request. 8.04, fiscal year 21 quarter 2 budget amendment requests. And 8.05, fiscal year 21 quarter 1 budget amendment request. 8.06, supplemental appropriation, switch and wireless initiative. 8.07, supplemental appropriation, COO prioritized request. 11.01, achievement network, ANET. 12.01, Baltimore School for the Arts Foundation.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts, I like to pull it for a vote.
8.01. Is that?
Yes, 12.01.
Okay. What was your question?
I like to pull it for a vote.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. Didn't hear. All right.
And Madam Chair,
Yes.
I had a question about that. I was just trying to make sure I was on the right one. My question is specifically looking at the demographics for Twigs. I noticed that it's 66% white staff members, and I was curious about the alignment of the demographics of the staff members with the demographics of students served through Twigs. I just had a question around that. That's all.
Okay, for Twigs. All righty. Thank you. 12.02, Apex Learning Incorporated and Edmonton Incorporated. 12.03, Book Source. 12.04, American Reading Company. 12.05, Amplify Education Incorporated. 12.06, Higher Achievement Program Incorporated. 12.07, Parks and People Foundation Incorporated, Super Kids. 12.08, University of Maryland, Baltimore County. 12.09, St. Vincent de Paul of Baltimore Incorporated. 12.10, Young Audiences of Maryland Incorporated.
Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I'd like to pull that. Go ahead, Chantal.
Go ahead. Question?
I was just going to pull it for a vote, Commissioner James.
That's all I'm pulling it for as well.
It's for a vote? All right, thank you. 12.11, Johns Hopkins University Center for Talented. 12.12, North Bay Education Incorporated. 12.13, Focus Care.
Can I pull 12.12?
Okay, question?
I guess my question is, we may not spend the money, but they're asking for $7.5 million. That seems pretty high, and I'd just like to know more in terms of the funding and why.
Okay. 12.013, Focus Care Incorporated, DBA, FEV Tutor Incorporated. 12.14, student uniforms. 15.1, Rough Roofers Incorporated. 15.02, Rough Roofers Incorporated. That is hard to say. 16.01, Urban Teacher Center Incorporated, Urban Teachers.
I would like to pull that, please.
Okay, question?
My question is how it fits into the total comprehensive package of teacher recruitment, how much money we're spending on external secondary sources to support teacher recruitment versus how much we spend to onboard traditionally trained teachers.
Okay. 16.02, resident education. 19.01, promotional items. And 20.01, C&C Advocacy Incorporated and Southwest Partnership Incorporated. Okay, I'm just going to make sure. I have 8.08, 12.01, 12.10, 12.12, and 16.01 as the items that have been pulled. Right? Okay. Thank you. We'll move now into public comment, and speakers from recognized groups will have the opportunity to speak for 5 minutes. Just a reminder to board members, I will come back to see if after public comment there are any additional items based on that you would like to have pulled. Our first speaker this evening is President Diamond Tay Brown, representing the Baltimore Teachers Union. Good evening, Ms. Brown.
Good evening, Board Commissioners. My name is Diamond Tay Brown, and I am the President of the Baltimore Teachers Union. The purpose of my comment is to highlight for you two major concerns BTU members share. The first concern, which the Board has already heard about repeatedly, is that BTU members continue to get unclear, generic, and detrimentally delayed responses to very specific questions they ask regarding obtaining and renewing their certification. I am in the process of renewing my certification, and prior to starting the process months ago, I asked about the eligibility of two specific classes. I received 3 responses, but none of them answered my question. I've already finished the first class, and the second class ends on June 16th. And I still don't even know with certainty if these classes will be accepted for my certification renewal or not. It's an unsettling feeling that I nor any staff member should have to experience. Despite several emails, meetings with Jeremy Grant Skinner, Jerome Jones, Sarah Deal, and giving board comments, many staff members are still waiting for substantial responses regarding their certification questions. In order to immediately and substantially respond to career and potentially life-changing inquiries, I urge the board to hold the CEO accountable for immediately increasing the capacity of the certification office. This can look like adding staff or decreasing responsibilities for the person currently responsible for substantial and timely responsiveness so that they can reasonably fulfill this expectation. I strongly discourage the solution to this widely and deeply felt issue to be dumping more work on already underpaid and overworked employees. A second concern that BTU members frequently share is the lack of clarification provided to students, families, and staff members regarding the multi-year recovery plan that was presented as the strategy that will be used to support students that will receive grade adjustments. Students in grades 2 through 12 that were going to receive a failing grade in a class will now receive a NC instead of an unsatisfactory or failing grade. In grades 2 through 8, NC stands for not completed. And in grades 9 through 12, NC stands for no credit. BTU appreciates the district's recent effort to acknowledge the negative impact the pandemic had on our students' grades. However, we have several questions that must be answered in order for staff to effectively support students that will have to make up classes or credits. Our questions include, and are not limited to, how will the multi-year recovery plan impact staff's working conditions? How will a student receiving an NC impact their grade point average? How will students be explicitly informed about the credits and/or classes they need to recover? How will the district use ESSER and GEAR funds to support the multi-year recovery plan? As the board works to get responses to our questions, I ask you to consider that in order to assist our high school seniors with post-high school planning, we will need more guidance counselors and educators to take on these additional responsibilities. So, will the district use ESSER and GEAR funds to support the salaries of additional guidance counselors and give stipends or incentives for educators taking on additional responsibilities? Since there is limited time to interact with the board and district leadership in this space, I suggest that the information we are seeking regarding grade adjustment be shared at multiple, well-promoted and well-attended parental and student information sessions that can also be paid for using ESSER and GEAR funds. Thanks for listening.
I want to thank Ms. Brown for comments. Next, we have Amanda Obe representing the Parent Community Advisory Board.
Good evening, Chair Chinia, School Board Commissioners. Amanda couldn't make it this evening, so you're stuck with Joe Kane. Good to see you all. And greetings, Dr. Santelises and staff. It's a privilege to join you this evening as my last presentation as PCAD Chair, and want to offer a report for the 2020-2021 school year and make an announcement for our new cohort of leadership for PCAD going into next school year. Board policy BDF states that the Parent and Community Advisory Board will submit a written report to the board or make a presentation at a public board meeting, public business meeting. Such report or presentation, will provide a summary detailing the advisory board activities and progress on annual goals. After a year of transition and disruption, PCAD was focused on this school year on reestablishing a full 14-member board and strengthening organizational infrastructure. Number two, ensuring families and members of the public were aware of PCAD's statutory role to hold the school district accountable as an independent voice. And our third goal this year was increasing engagement of families and community members in development and implementation of district policies and practices. So strengthening infrastructure. After ending the previous school year with only 3 returning PCAD members, we were focused in the summer of 2020 on recruiting and interviewing PCAD candidates in partnership with our district liaison. After the school board approved 8 new members, and along with 3 other appointed new members not requiring board approval, PCAD was able to start this school year with a full 14-member board with 2 alternates, and then retain 11 of those 14 members heading into the next school year. PCAD also strengthened its organizational infrastructure this year, including revising its bylaws for the first time since 2016 and establishing a standing communications committee. Full board participation has been strong, with meeting attendance averaging 90% over the course of the school year, and members have worked together as a team to engage district staff with families and community members for feedback on new and revised policies and a variety of other matters impacting student success, ranging from revamp of the district CTE program to the reopening and now the reconnect, restore, and reimagining of our post-COVID school system. Next, holding the district accountable. PCAD used this school year to educate and remind stakeholders of our statutory responsibility. This board was established and codified by the Maryland State Legislature to ensure parents and community members had a voice in the decision-making process. PCAD's voice is not a reflection of politicians, local media, or popular opinion, but rather the rigorous debate, data, outreach, and research performed by its members. As a result, time to time, our conclusions may conflict with the decision the district is considering. This should not put us against each other, but should open the door for a conversation that ensures everyone understands how a conclusion was reached. This school year, PCAD worked diligently to hold the district accountable on issues where we disagreed. While this process was not always performed in the manner preferred by this board or district leadership, it was always done with the approval of our entire board. While there remains opportunity for improvement, this school year set the stage for parents and community members to leverage PCAP as a tool for accountability. And then finally, engaging families and community members. The 2021 school year was unique for the Parent and Community Advisory Board, as there was significant need to evolve how we communicated important information to city schools families due to the restrictions of the COVID-19 pandemic. The Communications Committee was established to find innovative ways to communicate to the following constituents using social media, newsletters, press releases, website, which is in progress, and board testimony. Our first group was parents, caregivers, guardians, then community leaders, teachers and the teachers union, this district itself, and most importantly, our students. The Communications Committee prioritized finding a virtual connection between the 223,000 households in Baltimore City and almost 80,000 students enrolled within BCPSS. Content was developed to make the public, especially PTAs, PTOs, aware of each board member, the organization they are appointed to, and the school their children attended. Also provide updates and get public engagement on issues and public policy changes within the BCPSS, the state of Maryland, and Baltimore City, including issues like the reopening plan, MTA services cut, policy updates, and PEBT, amongst other things. And then finally, we provided details on community programming, scholarships, and virtual resources for languages, after-school programs, science classes, math support, etc. And cultivating our communications platform, yes.
Sorry, Joe, you're at time if you can wrap up your thoughts.
Yeah, you know, I thought we talked about that, where I can come here and share our report, right, Chair Chinia?
I'm going to ask Mr. Gain, I'm going to ask for you to go ahead and complete your report, Mr. Kane. We did ask for a report, so go right ahead.
Thank you. In cultivating our communications platform, PCAP grew its Facebook channel and created 2 other channels, Instagram and Twitter. Facebook grew its followers by 47%, and during the school year, and our engagement was between anywhere from 78 to 4,000, almost 5,000 folk engaging with us on different posts. And Twitter was created during the school year and currently has 202 followers. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. With that being said, we had a great school year, and we enjoyed this race around the track, how we started the school year. I'm happy to announce that Larry Simmons will be our next chair for PCAP, with our vice chair being Ms. Kira Davis-Griffith, our secretary being Dr. Jessica Schiller, and then our treasurer being Rachel. I forgot her last name right now, and she's gonna get me. But Rachel will be our treasurer for the school year. It's been a pleasure, and I'll take any questions, if any.
First of all, I want to say thank you for the report. What we'll make certain that we do in the future is, actually give you time to do it as an informational report, so it doesn't have to be in the public comment time, and then you won't have to worry about trying to rush it all into sort of 5 or 6 minutes. So we'll be certain to schedule that better for you next time. But thank you so much. Right.
Have a good one. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Congrats to Larry. I'm excited.
Okay. At this time, we don't have any other of the established recognized groups, that have signed up for this evening. So I'm going to turn it over to the board exec for the remainder of public comment.
Thank you, Chair Chinia. First is a written comment from Michael Arian, and I'll go right ahead. School psychologists are asking for the same recognition and support the district already provides for teaching staff with national certifications. Our national certification has rigorous graduate and continuing education requirements that must be met to maintain certification. These requirements cover all areas of our expansive practice, including but not limited to legal and ethics training, academic intervention, psychological assessments for IEPs, consultation with school staff, parents, and students in counseling. Recognizing staff who put in extra work to maintain this certification encourages continuing professional growth in practice. It is a demonstration that Baltimore City Public Schools value high quality, rigorous continuing education for staff. Currently, the nation is experiencing a significant school psychologist shortage, with many school districts finding it very difficult to hire highly qualified school psychologists. Providing the same stipend that other nationally certified teachers in our district already have access to can act as a powerful recruitment tool to encourage other highly qualified candidates to work in the district. And that was from Michael Arian. Next, we have a video from Dr. April Turner.
I'm a school psychologist in Baltimore City Schools and a proud member of the Baltimore Teachers Union. I am also the Maryland delegate to the National Association of School Psychologists. One of the core tenets of school psychology practice is the advocacy for equitable practices for students and staff. Today, I am here to advocate for school psychologist parity with teachers regarding national certification and compensation. As outlined in several board and district documents, City Schools values professional excellence, ongoing professional learning, and best practices for student success. Teachers who demonstrate these practices by obtaining national board certification are compensated annually by City Schools. However, school psychologists who meet a similar national standard of excellence and obtain national certification are not compensated by City Schools. This practice is inconsistent with City Schools' vision, blueprint for success, strategic plan, and other board documents. Compensation for nationally certified school psychologists would strengthen the recruitment and retention of school psychologists in City Schools, and also support the use of best practices across all schools. Additionally, providing compensation for nationally certified school psychologists could set a standard of professional excellence across the district and across the state. In conclusion, school psychologists are asking for parity with teachers regarding compensation for their national certification. Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, my computer is moving a little slow. Next, we have a video from Elizabeth Namis. Sorry, I did not mean, sorry if I mispronounced your last name, but we have a video from Miss Namis.
Good afternoon. My name is Elizabeth Nymick, and I'm a school psychologist in my 9th year of practice here in the district. I currently work with the amazing teams at Dr. Angela Y. Davis Leadership Academy and Walter P. Carter Elementary Middle School. Thank you to the board for allowing public comment at today's meeting. Our blueprint for success states that city schools is prioritizing leadership and continuous professional growth to create a culture where staff and students alike know that learning is valued and celebrated. The current practices regarding national certification compensation for school psychologists are inconsistent with this statement. If the district is prioritizing leadership and continuous professional growth, it would follow that they would support and encourage school psychologists to obtain national certification, as it is the highest level of professional standards that we can work towards. Systemic compensation for elevating our practice to best practice is a clear way that the district can show that they value and celebrate professional excellence. Therefore, school psychologists across the district are requesting equity with nationally certified teachers who currently receive an annual stipend. This systemic compensation would not only encourage school psychologists to commit to continuous professional growth at the national level, but to build a career in the city because our professional excellence is valued. Thank you.
Next, we have a video from Rebecca Yanawan of the Teachers Democracy Project.
Good evening. I'm sharing some thoughts with you from a group of educators and parents who had thoughts about what they'd like to see in the plans for next year. The first issue they wanted to share is that they want to see a thoughtful plan for the virtual academy. Many still struggle with poor internet connection and want to know how the district can help to fight for Comcast to provide adequate service. We encourage the board and district to join Baltimoreans for Educational Excellence in putting pressure on the Federal Communications Commission to regulate for quality internet service. Also, for students who have done really well in the virtual space and who want or need to continue, families and educators want to know more about the Virtual Academy plan and would like to see virtual kids still be connected to their home school. People are concerned about the social and emotional well-being of students, families, and staff. They want to know how we plan to offer support for the transition back. At the start of the school year, we heard some people suggest we spend some time before launching into academics to just connect and rebuild a sense of community. This should continue throughout the school year to help communities adjust. We've also heard requests for individualized reach outs to families to better understand concerns and needs. These should happen by school staff and not through a survey. We would also like to see opportunities for staff and students to circle up and to do their own SEL, healing, and wellness work. As always, parents want to be a part of schools and want to know how exactly they can be a part. We'd like to see the school year begin with schools creating a plan for enhancing parent involvement at each school. One thing we've heard a lot lately is that in schools where there is staff transition, parents want to have a greater role in the hiring process of teachers and principals. This process seems uneven across schools and not always inclusive. We know that academic support to fill the gaps that exist will be very much needed and are a priority, but we would like to see freedom and flexibility also given to schools on how they will meet student needs. This year, the district has doubled down on schools and mandated so much of what happened in the classroom. These times require more flexibility and imagination. We ask you to please allow schools to respond to the needs that they see as they see fit as well. Lastly, safety remains a concern. If we still have no vaccination for our young students in the fall, what is the plan to keep kids safe? How do we create safety when classes will be full or close to full? We are confident that you are working on all of these issues, but just wanted to register these are the concerns that we're hearing. Thanks so much for your time.
Next, we have a video from Brittany Johnstone.
Good evening. My name is Brittany Johnstone. I'm a school psychologist and an elected representative for the teacher chapter in the BTU. I am here tonight requesting that the board and its representatives engage with BCU members who are negotiating currently to expand the stipend program for teacher chapter members who hold a national certification. This is section 18.22 in the current teacher chapter contract for those following along at home. There's contract language in place currently to provide teachers who demonstrate a commitment to excellence in their practice a yearly stipend. Clinicians within Baltimore City Schools are asking the board and its representatives to agree to expanding this stipend language to include school psychologists and other clinicians who hold similar national certifications. It is in the board's interest to recruit and retain clinicians who have a demonstrated commitment to professional excellence. And at its root, it's an issue of staff members being treated fairly. I personally know clinicians who have left city schools for other Maryland districts because those districts provide stipends to clinicians who hold a national certification. Some of these clinicians led and supported district-level behavior consultation and assessment teams, and the additional professional development they obtained to maintain their national certification enabled them to offer AU courses and PLCs that increase the professional competency of an exponential number of staff. Clinicians are asking the board to support and invest in our demonstrated commitment to professional excellence and ongoing training and development. I am proud to be a clinician in city schools, and I know that my commitment to maintaining my national certification is the best thing I can do for schools, families, and students I support. Having that commitment respected by expanding the stipend program to include clinicians is what's fair and best for city schools. Thank you for your time.
Okay, next we have Arshia Sethi commenting live. Arshia, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, great. You have 3 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Greetings, everyone. My name is Arshia Sethi, and I'm a member of Baltimoreans for Educational Equity, also known as B. B is a group of teachers, former teachers, families, students, and allies who work collectively to achieve educational equity at the district, city, and state level. I'm here today on behalf of our members to ask for continued transparency around community input on the district's plan for the American Rescue Plan funds. We appreciate the efforts the district has made to engage the community around the American Rescue Plan, such as the nearly 20 community listening sessions, last week's session with Ed Trust, and the high level of transparency associated with sharing the community input via the district's website this morning. Because we similarly value community engagement, B distributed a survey to the 1,500 educators, students, families, and stakeholders who compose our membership. We wanted to understand the intersection of our members' priorities with the district's priorities for the ARPA funds. This morning, the district posted the May stakeholders reports on the 3Rs website. The comprehensive report gave us a helpful overview of community priorities as well as a preliminary understanding of whose voices may be missing from the process. We've only been able to do a quick review of the results, and we found that on quick glance, many aligned with ours, which are providing wraparound support for students, closing the digital divide, providing adequate social and emotional learning, and providing expanded learning time. Similarly, we found that some of the interventions suggested via the district survey responses align with the interests of B members. For example, both surveys indicated that it was a priority for the district to ensure kids continue to have the right devices, adequate internet, and digital education to access blended learning opportunities. The district has communicated an ambitious timeline for community input on the 3Rs plan, and we appreciate the efforts to collect and transparently share community feedback. However, we are concerned about the low attendance at community sessions and the low rate of survey responses. In the preliminary review of the comprehensive report from the May efforts, we noticed that there was a low response across stakeholder groups. The most concerning was that there were only 5 responses to the Spanish language survey. Additionally, only 1% of the student population and less than 1% of the family community responded to the survey. We want to understand more of what the district is doing to engage folks from historically marginalized communities. Specifically, we'd like more information about the racial and economic diversity of the community respondents to district plans. In order to determine whose input is missing, we ask that questions on racial and economic demographics are included and reported on in the district's second survey. We'd also like to have a clearer sense of the district's desired response rate for the second wave of feedback. We are also curious as to how different stakeholders' answers will be prioritized when strategies are decided on and implemented. For example, in cases where students prioritize something about their own learning that teachers, community members, or principals did not, will this be identified and given attention? Our priority here is to ensure that the communities providing input actually reflect the diversity of the city schools community, and the input of those directly impacted by educational equity is appropriately prioritized. We are asking for continued transparency across this process so that we can partner towards stronger community engagement. Thank you for listening to our concerns, and we are looking forward to engaging in the rest of this process to create the best equitable plan for these funds.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Thank you. Next, we have a written comment from Catherine Stewart. Okay. My name is Catherine Stewart, and I've been a school psychologist for Baltimore City Public Schools and a nationally certified school psychologist through the National Association of School Psychologists for over 6 years. This national certification is only recognized when a school psychologist has obtained a master's in education specialist degree from an approved program and has passed the practice exam. Additionally, the Maryland State Department of Education recognizes school psychologists who hold their NCSP. In order to maintain this national certification, we have to use our own money for continued professional development and to renew it every 3 years. This is an investment of my own money that has helped in my professional learning and development and as a leader in our district. However, in Baltimore City Public Schools, school psychologists are not recognized for their national certification, even though teachers are recognized for their national board certification and provided with a stipend. As a school psychologist, I play an important role in our district in supporting schools with special education services, e.g., psychological evaluations, IEP meetings, IEP reports, direct and/or indirect psychological services to students, as well as general education services, e.g., counseling, teacher, staff, family consultation, crisis response and intervention, team meetings, SEL and behavioral support, school leadership. However, I do not feel that I receive the same level of support and recognition that teachers receive with their national board certifications. I've also been the secretary for the Maryland School Psychologists Association for the last 2 years, and I advocate for the role of school psychologists not only in Baltimore City, but across our state. While in this role, I've learned of urban and suburban school districts in Maryland and across the U.S. who provide compensation to school psychologists who hold their national certification as a way to recognize their commitment to higher education and continued professional development, while also retaining talented and hardworking school psychologists. If we want to bring in the best school psychologists and retain them, we need to show them that we want them to grow in their practice and continue with their professional learning. Catherine Stewart, EDS NCPS. Next, we have Paul Tolliver commenting live.
So how y'all doing today?
All right.
I'm pretty much a Baltimorean. Came up in the education system here, the public education system. I feel like I got a pretty good education. I want to commend all you guys on this board for everything that you do, everything I've listened to over about the last hour. I'm not in, the education system at all, but I'm very involved with my high school, Maryville. I have a big part in the classes that come in and out of there. I went to Maryville. It had a big hand in what I do today. I was able to go to college from the staff there, everything I was provided. So everything of, my take was like, it was big in faculty that was inside of the building, right? So the reason I'm just pretty much calling is just trying to see where certain statuses are with, selecting principals and just seeing how, what the procedure is when, interviewing processes for principals and things of that sort. Just understanding, like I said, coming from, a public school system, I root for our public school system. I fight for a lot of parents that don't know where they want their kids to go to our trade schools, or go to city, poly to get a good education. But another thing, Merv will no longer be in a citywide school. That's probably irrelevant, but just like to know where things are, you know, because going there, having certain faculty that really push for the students, push for higher education, push for different programs, putting people that are not I don't know how to say it, you know, people that are not really for certain communities, you know what I'm saying? Just wanted to see how the community can have more of a say-so, more of a voting poll, but I see, and just listening to certain reports, we don't have a lot of community families that are active, right, in our school system. So that was one of the big factors, but I just wanted to put my input in, kind of see where things were with the process of interviewing for principals, because I coach there. I don't really get into the politics of things at all. But what I do realize, you know, you just see a lot of stuff when certain people are in places and understanding how policies go. You know, that's just a concern for me, knowing, like I said, that the school is no longer a citywide school. So you'll be, you know, dealing with maybe other challenges, but knowing that a great fit into an institution could be, you know, a very important one. So just wanted to see that input and just kind of see how I can go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Tom. I don't know if Dr. Staff has any updates on this or anything to provide. If not, Mr. Tom, we can reach out. I have your information, so I can reach out to you. I have your email and phone number.
Okay.
Yeah, and Mr. Gant, I would also say to Mr. Tolliver that we will be giving the Mervo community an update probably within the next week. Would that be the right timeline? Chief Davis, that's what I understand.
Yes, we owe the Mervo community a follow-up from some of the things we said earlier in the year, and I'd say the next week is right.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Mr. Tolliver. Much appreciated.
Next, we have Ms. Keisha Goodwin.
Hello, good evening, CEO and commissioners. Today, I am here to discuss facilities in the Frankfurt Improvement Association community. And I hope that that young man really get the assistance that he needs for Merbenthal, because Frankfurt did not when it came to choosing a principal for Vanguard. All right, with that being said, I'm here to discuss two schools which I closely work with that has seemingly been overlooked and or delayed before and during the pandemic. The first school is Furley Elementary. I would just like to know what school has been in a swing space for 5 years or more. If there wasn't a school, now there is, and it is Furley and possibly Vanguard. The original Furley building has air conditioning and a real library with an unshared gym. As of now, the timeline for renovations for Furley has not been transparent with the community. For example, what is the date for the completion to establish the foundation? What is the completion date for the roof repairs? And so on. The next school is Moravia. There are two portables that has been there for nearly 2 years in poor conditions. I have heard during the school family council meetings that people have asked for BCPSS to remove these portables. They are eyesore, they're not usable, they're taking up space, and they're in poor condition. The Judy Center people has asked for these buildings to be removed. The Frankfurt Community Association agrees that BCPSS, along with the folks at Moravia, should pay for and have these portables removed off of Baltimore City property. I look forward to working with BCPSS on these matters. I see that other schools can get a timeline for when a playground can be completed, a roof on a playground, when their schools air conditioner, things like that can be renovated and the time frame. And I'm looking for equity when it comes to Frankfurt Improvement Association as well. And that's my testimony for today.
Thank you, Ms. Goodwin. Finally, we have Rodney Carr. Rodney, are you online? Let's see. I don't see you in the attendees or the I don't see you in the attendees or the phone number, so I think we'll just have to move on. Chair Chinya, back to you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gant. Fellow board members, based on public comment, are there any additional items that board members would like to pull from the consent agenda? Okay, if not, we will go back to those things that have been pulled and look at those. If you don't mind, okay, no, hold on a second. Let me make sure I have the right spot. The first item that was pulled was, I'm going to hold on 8.08 because of the presentation, so I'll do that after the others. 12.02, which was the Baltimore School for the Arts Foundation, and there was a question concerning the demographics around the TWIGS program, and then also there was asked to be pulled for a vote.
Madam Chair, that's 12.01.
I'm sorry, 12.01. Sorry about that. Baltimore School for the Arts. I see Director Ford. Hello there.
Hello, how are you?
Just fine. So Commissioner Griffin, did you want to
restate my
anything more of your question?
Yeah, my question was basically after reading through everything, one main thing that stood out to me was just the TWIG staff being 66% white. And knowing like the students that TWIG serves, I really had a question around increasing diversity of art staff for TWIG's programming and any work that's being done around that, because that was concerning to me when I read through it.
I recognize that as a challenge. This is Chris Ford speaking. I recognize that as a challenge, and that is definitely an effort to make those faculty representation connect to the representation of our students. It's something that does take some time to address because we don't have much turnover in terms of faculty, but it certainly can be addressed over time, and all of my leadership staff are clear that that needs to be done. And my successor will, I'm sure, be committed to that as well.
Okay. So it's almost like a historical standing point because of like long-term staff that has been there. What efforts have been taken?
I think increasing the pool of applicants is important to do. And I think that's the lack of doing that has contributed to this issue that we're facing right now. But that's clearly been a problem and clearly needs to be ameliorated.
Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Ford, I appreciate you mentioning that again. We did discuss this a bit on Tuesday in committee. And I also publicly just want to, I'm not sure if you can hear me, Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
I said I just wanted to acknowledge and appreciate you bringing that back up. We did mention that Tuesday in committee, the issue of demographics, not only with Twig staff, but with your part-time applied teaching faculty and staff as well. So I know that it is an issue and I appreciate you addressing it. I just wanted to make sure that we also acknowledge you are on our retiree list tonight. And so I just wanted to make sure that in this public setting, although we did address it in committee, that we just take a moment to acknowledge your service. I believe it is over 35 years of service that you've committed to city schools. And particularly to School for the Arts. So just want to make sure we take the time to say thank you and well wishes on your retirement.
I appreciate that, and it's been a joy and an honor from beginning to end. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner McFadden, for saying that, and thank you, Director Ford. And yes, hope that you do enjoy your retirement. Thanks for all that you've done over the years.
Thanks so much. Take care. Good evening.
So are there any other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve item 12.01?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Commissioner McFadden, is there a second?
Second, Richardson.
I heard, okay, Richardson. I heard so many at once. All right. Those in favor, Commissioner Bondima?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
Madam Chair, I'll be abstaining from this vote.
Okay. And I am in favor. So this motion carries. We have 8 in favor and 1 abstention. Thank you very much. And again, thank you, Director Ford.
Thank you. Good evening.
The next item that was pulled was 12.10, Young Audiences of Maryland. This was for the vote. All right.
That's correct.
So is there a motion to approve 12.10?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner McFadden. Is there a second?
Richardson.
Thank you. Those in favor, Commissioner Bondima?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks? Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Griffin?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
I'm abstaining from this vote, Madam Chair.
Okay. Commissioner McFadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
Madam Chair, I'll be abstaining from this vote.
Okay. And I am in favor. This item also passes. We have 7 in favor and 2 abstentions. The next item that was pulled was 12.12 North Bay Incorporated, and the question was around the amount of funding and sort of more information about why that amount and how it was going to be used.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Dr. Essen, Board of Commissioners. My name is Josh Bailey. I'm the Director of Operations for the Office of Teaching and Learning. And so Commissioner Reed, to speak to the question specifically about how that amount was arrived at, North Bay submitted 3 different programs as part of their most recent PQS proposal. And so that includes the typical 1-week program that I'm sure a lot of us are used to, where students leave on a Monday, return on a Friday. And so that is included continuing. And we increased that amount so that schools, as districts and charter schools, would have sufficient access to those programs, knowing that the ESSER funds are allowable for wraparound supports such as field trips. So we wanted to increase the amount to provide sufficient capacity there. The real largest reason related to the much higher amount, though, is tied to the two other programs that are included in their proposal. And that is for a residential program that would be facilitated during the summer, as well as a residential program that would be facilitated during the full school year. So if you recall, I believe it was about 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago, you all heard a presentation from North Bay about the successful program. And I see Chief High Hubbard here, who I'll punt to in just a second, if there's more about the residential program. But that allows for that program to both be continued as well as expanded. We set the limit to a not to exceed amount. So $7.5 million over the 3-year term. So $2.5 million total per year, so that we could capture the residential program during summer, the residential program during the year, as well as district and charter schools who might be interested in the typical 1-week program that we're much more used to. And so that was quite a bit. So Commissioner Reed, please let me know if that answered your question.
And what's the process in deciding when to pull the trigger and for what of the 3 areas to pull the trigger? What's the process?
Can you say more about process for the 3
Okay,
programs?
you have the school year program, you have the summer program, and you have the residential program. So you're talking $2.5 million per year. The question is, from my gather, I was lucky enough to take a tour of North Bay, and my takeaway was that district is still in the process of discerning how much they want to be engaged with North Bay.
I believe that's right. And yeah, thank you, Chief.
Yeah, happy to jump in. Thank you, Commissioner Reed. So the summer residential program is really designed to get more kids to the summer North Bay experience, right? So it's the SEL approach of those week-long times like they would do during the school year, just over the summer months of getting kids back in. That is aligned with the traditional way that North Bay has been experienced through our schools. And honestly, as Josh said, we want to make sure that more schools have the opportunity to go. Historically, it has been the schools that have enough resources already, or schools whose parents can pay for kids to have that experience. Those are already sort of, we want to make sure that more kids have that opportunity. To your other question, though, about the longer term fall residential program, you're exactly correct. We have not made a decision yet. They are working with MSDE. As you know, we talked about that when you prepared for your visit, Commissioner Reed, that they want to do a longer program where they're doing recovery work and tutoring with students, and they are still building that program. And so this would allow them, if we agree to it, because again, this is just an opportunity. It doesn't mean we're committing to it. It doesn't mean we're solidified on it. But if they are able to get additional funds from MSDE, for example, to cover part of that program, we would consider a pilot initiative potentially of supporting our most disadvantaged students that are homeless, that kind of thing, through a residential approach and support. But we also, as you know, ask them to provide more evidence and curriculum and standards approach. So we are very solid in their approach and know what they're doing. So they are still working on that. I will also just share with the public, they also went for legislation this year to the state to try to become a school like the Seed School, where they provide quarterly programming for students based on their model they had this school year. While we're very excited what they had done this school year, we are still waiting for them to produce the background, the curriculum plan, the evidence, the staffing, et cetera, for us to be able to approve a pilot initiative of being in person. The PQS just allows us to move forward if we are frankly satisfied with what they're able to produce moving forward. And then I know they're going to go back to the legislature next year as well, and they're trying to look at other counties to have that same kind of approach and program. And I will say what they did this last fall was strong, but the word is still out on the strength of the tutoring and long-term program for the fall.
And why can't we pay for this with ESSER's money versus general funds?
Josh, you want to speak to that?
So it would be allowable on ESSER funds. And so I think in the letter, we note that the funds for the program, the residential program, the week-long program, would vary based upon who initiates that request. So a school might choose to use their general funds. They could also use their ESSER funds. But yes, you are correct that these would be allowable programs on our ESSER grants.
And just to add, schools could also use their concentrations of poverty grants as well to cover this cost because it is wraparound supports for students.
Thank you.
Sorry, I had to unmute. Were there any other questions? Okay, if not, is there a motion to approve item 12.12?
So moved, Reed.
Is there a second?
McFadden.
McFadden, okay. And I'll call for the vote. Commissioners, just indicate to me if you're not approving, just indicate what your vote might be, and I won't have to go back through again if you don't mind. Commissioner Bondima?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
In favor, yes.
Commissioner McFadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
And I'm in favor. So this item is approved. We have 9 in favor. Thank you. The next item that was pulled was 16.01, Urban Teacher Center Incorporated, Urban Teachers. And it was a question about the, I think it was about the, I'll let Commissioner James, I believe you brought it up. Was it Commissioner James? The use of the funds versus the traditional and how this impacts the recruitment versus the traditionally trained teachers.
Yeah, specifically, we're investing in teachers, and I completely understand the recruitment challenges and difficulties with recruiting and retaining. But it feels like we're continuing to invest in external supports rather than investing in our own students. And the teachers that come to us who are traditionally certified have put up forth their own resources to contribute. So what are we doing? What do we spend on traditionally certified teachers to onboard them, to bring them into the fold, to keep them here versus what we're spending with an external organization? Or external organizations.
You started by saying you recognize the recruitment challenge, and I will. So given that, I'll be quick about one point. But as we shared in the Teaching and Learning Committee in April, when we presented on teacher pipelines, we reiterated what we've shared many times before, that in Maryland, traditional programs are only preparing about half of the number of teachers that are needed statewide. And that means not just that we need assistance with recruiting, but we actually need assistance with preparing more teachers. So Urban Teachers is one of the 3 programs that we partner with that has an approved preparation program with the state. We're not in a position as a district to run our own teacher preparation program. So to the extent that institutions of higher education are not producing the number of teacher graduates that we need for the demand we have, we do rely on organizations that have created alternative teacher prep programs. In terms of the budget allocation, we shared in the budget process that there is $5 million devoted to teacher recruitment. We highlighted that we have a talent management department. We didn't put a number on it at the time, but that team is a $1 million investment where those staff members spend most of their time for many months of the year supporting principals around recruitment and hiring. And we've invested more in recruitment generally in the last few years, and it has worked. That in 2018 and in 2019, those are the 2 years, the 2 highest years in the last decade or more, where in terms of the number of traditional candidates we've hired into new teacher positions with the district. About urban teachers specifically, what I would highlight is the investment here is not just for individuals to step into teacher roles, but we are also paying for an investment of the work that the urban teacher residents are doing in the first year of their residency. So there is a teacher in training, a paraeducator-like position that is providing almost full-time service in the schools they're assigned to in that year when they are training to become a teacher as well.
Do we do any advertising or recruiting to traditional programs, MSIs or HBCUs outside of Maryland? It's relatively unique that Maryland pays for the master's program for teachers. And I think if teachers around the country knew that, we might not have quite such a challenge.
Yes, we've expanded our recruitment in the last 2 years to add additional HBCUs, MSIs across the country. I think there are about 18 or 20 that we specifically recruit at in 2019 and in 2020.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? If not, is there a motion to approve item 16.01?
So moved, Bundema.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Brooke.
Ben, all right. Okay, those in favor, Commissioner Bondima,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
No, oppose.
Commissioner McFadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson,
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
and I'm in favor. This is approved. We have 8 in favor and 1 opposed. Thank you. And now, is there a motion to approve the remaining consent agenda other than the item that I know is going to be a presentation?
So moved, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner McFadden. Is there a second?
Second, Robert.
Thank you. Those in favor, Commissioner Bondima,
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks,
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin,
Yes.
Commissioner James,
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden,
Yes.
Commissioner Reed,
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson,
Yes.
and Commissioner Roberts,
Yes.
and I'm in favor. So the remaining are approved, 9 in favor. Thank you. So now I'm going to turn it over to the Office of New Initiatives for item 8.08, which is the new charter application, Shining Willow Charter School.
Sorry. Good evening, board commissioners. Thank you so much. So I think the presentation is coming up. Okay, perfect. So I'm Angela Alvarez. I'm the Executive Director of the Office of New Initiatives, and I'm joined by.
Hi, I'm Kim Coleman, Specialist in the Office of New Initiatives.
And so tonight we're presenting the final recommendation for Shining Willow, who's been an advocate in our process. Before we start the presentation, I just want to again thank the applicant and their team for just participating in this process. It's an intense process, and so every year we get well-meaning people who put a lot of hard work and a lot of time. Sometimes these things take a year or 2 years of real committed work by people that are focused and who really want to be of service to our district. And so I just want to thank them for their time and their attention to this process. It's a challenging process. And so I just wanted to start with that acknowledgement. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kim.
Joe, if you could go back just one more slide. We're going to first recap the roles and responsibilities of the participants in the review and approval process, which begins with the Charter and Operator-Led Schools Advisory Board, which is an internal-external stakeholder group that advises the CEO on issues relating to operator-led schools. And new in the past 2 years, we've also added an operator of one of our existing charter schools on this particular review panel with the advisory board. Representatives from this body conduct a thorough review of applications, and they formulate clarifying follow-up questions, and applicants are also interviewed by the advisory board reviewers. So based on the interview and the review of the application, the advisory board provides advice to the CEO, who may also request supplemental information to address any weaknesses or outstanding questions in the application. And so any supplemental information that's been provided is also always considered in the development of the CEO's recommendations. And her first preliminary recommendation shared with the Board of School Commissioners on May 26th. And applicants provide further supplemental information following that work session. And with all of that work information factored in from the application, the interview, and the board work session, and several rounds of supplemental materials, the CEO formulates her final recommendation to the Board of School Commissioners, which will be presented tonight. And ultimately, it's the Board of School Commissioners who has the deciding authority and makes a determination to either approve or to not approve any proposal based on review of the application, consideration of the board's priorities, the applicant's testimony at the work session, supplemental information provided, and the CEO's recommendation. You can move ahead. So our team meets with prospective applicants in an ongoing manner and addresses questions as they arise, and provides access to prior applications for review in preparation for the team drafting their own application. We host 3 technical assistance sessions and post a recording of one of those on the website so that it's available to the public for anyone who wishes to view it. We received letters of intent this year on February 5th, and then the application deadline was March 25th, specifically between the hours of 9 and noon. So under Maryland law, we've mentioned before, once City School accepts the application submissions, the clock begins ticking, and we have 120 days as a district to render a decision on each application that's been received. Following a pretty intensive review process, the interviews provide applicants an opportunity to address questions that were developed by the reviewers raised in a review of the application. Applicants get a list of questions, and they can address them in the interview. They can also provide supplemental materials following the interview with regard to any questions or concerns pertaining to their application. And then the board work session, which took place on May 26th, is an additional opportunity for the applicant to cure weaknesses through their testimony, where they present their application and then they address any questions and concerns, both those provided in advance of the session from staff and the review team, as well as directly from the commissioners during that work session. And then applicants had one final opportunity to share additional supplemental materials following that work session by the 28th. Prior to the CEO formulating her final recommendation to the Board of School Commissioners, which was shared with the applicant group yesterday, which brings us to tonight's date. And that's where I'm going to pass things back to Angela to share a recap of the application and the CEO's recommendation.
Thank you, Kim. Just as a reminder, the board can set priorities for special consideration when it comes to applications. There are 4 kind of priority areas. One is for conversion of existing underperforming schools by operators of a track record of strong governance, as well as efficacy in improving outcomes for student populations similar to the school they're seeking to convert. Proposals to replicate high-performing charter programs in areas of the city where the model does not exist. Proposals for advanced high school programming that focuses on early college opportunities, or IB, or that have robust kind of CTE programming similar to PTAC. And then finally for dual language or late immersion programs. So the applicant application that is before the board tonight is for the Shining Willow Charter School by Shining Willow Incorporated. The proposal is for an elementary middle school that would reach 468 students. The recommendation is to not approve. The proposal is to open a school in Northeast Baltimore rooted in a hybrid of anti-racist education and Waldorf-inspired pedagogy. It focuses on integrating and engaging cognitive, physical, emotional, social, and creative imaginative self, similar to what you see in the private school options of Waldorf. And the mission is really focused on nurturing the learning experience of children using arts integration, cross-curricular approaches, as well as instilling a lifelong passion in students. There were strengths with this application. There's a healthy cross-section of a representation of a strong team. There's 27 members of the founding team, which include expertise in the Waldorf model itself, as well as in areas of importance when it comes to operating a school like education, finance, facilities, and school operations. Additionally, the academic plan and model, the Waldorf Infused curriculum itself, it's focused on the whole child approach as a strength, and thinking through having an approach that really centers in the stages of human development as a driver for student achievement was helpful. And there's evidence of success with this model within private schools, and they provided some examples of experience in urban districts. However, that's a bit more limited as to schools. There were some, you can go to the next slide. Additionally, during the process, there were some concerns that the applicant were able to either partially or fully cure. The first area of concern was around looping. Originally, there was a concern that there wasn't a sufficient plan to address anticipated kind of challenges you would see in looping, where a student and teacher did not have a good match, and mediation didn't work. Also, in how you prepare teachers for looping for that kind of extended period of time. And so the applicant and the supplemental materials outlined several mediation strategies for students experiencing challenges that centered on improving teacher quality and teacher retention, and just continued support and coaching, as well as, if necessary, shifting a student from one class to the other. So a real focus on like ongoing coaching and working with the family and centering the family and the student, and really get to know the student. Additionally, and the concern around whether there's a week of preparation in the summer for teachers as they go from one grade level to the next with their students. But part of the plan also included 3 dedicated staff positions that would be doing ongoing coaching throughout the year with those teachers to provide the additional support as they transition into those different grade levels. And so we saw that concern as being cured. The other area where there was a concern was around certification. In the original plan, our understanding of it was that there was a need for staff to get Waldorf certified, since it's a Waldorf kind of program. And the language in the application sort of wasn't super clear. The applicant was able to clarify that as a Waldorf-inspired school, there's not a requirement to complete a Waldorf certification program, but rather a preference that the school would help staff with in getting that level of certification. And this was accompanied by what was really clear in the plan, that there's consistent training and coaching and Waldorf practices that's happening along the way. The other thing that was a remaining concern, and we haven't had a full chance to check into this, but the applicant was able to give us an update today, was around the Public Waldorf Alliance organization that provides support. So one of the strengths in the application was that they had the support of that organization for public Waldorf, and one of their requirements was around ensuring that staff would get Waldorf certified as a program. Over 50% of the staff would get Waldorf certified. And so the applicant was able to share that the organization's support would continue even if it was considered a developing school, where less than 50% were certified. So that was helpful information that we received today. The other area of concern that got partially cured was around the equity and anti-racist component of the program. So in the original application, those elements read as add-ons rather than as a full realized approach to the application. And so the applicant in the supplemental material was able to provide a sample lesson that really demonstrated, in addition to identifying curriculum that they would use that complements Waldorf, a cohesion between that approach and anti-racist education. So there's a concrete curriculum that they showed how it would flow using a sample from a third grade class. That really gave us a sense of the day-to-day approach, and that there's a real intention to have those components go alongside with a plan to review the effectiveness of the approaches as part of how the school does annual surveys and other ways that it gets feedback on its efficacy. One thing to note, and this is I think an area of growth within the district and other places, is the curriculum they identify is still fairly new, so the efficacy of that is still an unknown. The other place where there's an outstanding question and concern was around diversity, since this stance around anti-racist is a big component of the program, and it's an importance of us as a district, as evidenced by questions earlier tonight from the board, of really seeing a diversity of the staff and the board that matched the student population. And so the applicant was able to share that that is a priority for them in recruiting staff and board members that reflect their community. And so they identified some strategies that they would use to do that. But some of these ideas are still really new, and so they're not in a fully kind of realized plan. Some of the components of them are beyond the control of the applicant, some of it relied on salaries and testing and things that would not be in the control of an operator. Others are very early in the stages, so beginning to research how you develop a grow your own program, and the hopeful partnership with Morgan, but is not yet realized. Next slide. And then there are areas of concern that are kind of unresolved. One area of weakness that we've identified is around the target student population and providing programming for students with differing needs. So the application did not demonstrate a strong understanding of the needs of the target student population and did not make a compelling case for why the model would benefit that population. The application was written more from an ideal student perspective and does not account for the target student population or support for students with differing needs, particularly English learners. Supplemental materials provided by Shining Willow kind of relied on aspects of the application, so the concern was not fully cured, although they did discuss more about the demographics of the community and the supplemental materials. Additional area of weakness is in the facility acquisition plan / school budget. So it remains a major concern that the budget and we also see this sort of an operational deficiency, that there isn't a financing plan or funding set aside in the budget to account for preparations or renovations for readying any of the identified facilities for school use. The applicant had identified 3 potential surplus buildings, each that would require resources to ready for use. Additionally, in supplemental material, applicants shared the potential of using some church-affiliated sites. These were identified as short-time options for a maximum of 2 years, which that part is fine. But again, our experience has been that these also require funding in order to really ready for real school use. And so while the supplemental materials identify contingency budget, the source of the funds is not based on already secured funds. and then thus accounted in like a revised budget, but rather the hopes of obtaining grants where the funding could be allocated for that. So that remains a major concern for us. And then finally, in alignment with board policies, evidence of demand, and meeting a district need. The application does not align with any of the priority areas for new schools and does not meet an unmet need. Northeast Baltimore has an abundance of traditional charter and private schools. And so it's not a clear need that we need another wholly new school in that part of our city. In addition, there was not enough sufficient evidence of demand provided in the application to support that. And so while there were 388 signatures that were showing general support for the idea of an alternative option within that part of town, in the survey that the applicant utilized, only 79 people indicated direct support or did they consider sending their children to the school if approved. And so, we would want to see a higher number to that to show there is a real demand or desire for this model. This is a heightened concern for us. In recent years, we've seen that newly approved schools by established operators who are well known, including in parts of our city that are overcrowded, where it could benefit from another option, have struggled to attract sufficient enrollment to be ready to open. And so that's something we've seen a lot in recent times. The applicant was also not able to make a compelling case that the program provides an innovative programming that meets unmet need in the area of early learning. So we're able to show what Waldorf would bring that's different than what we are currently doing in early learning. And so really understanding the landscape is important in the context of the application. So based on all of the above and in the context of a district with declining enrollment that has closed 40 schools since 2012, where the overall population of school-age children in Baltimore City has been declining since 2010. And this is a real funding challenge for us as a district. It would not be in the best interest of existing students and families to add this program at this time. Thus, with all of this, the outstanding weaknesses in the application and supplemental responses outweigh the strengths presented at this time. So it is for, get to the next slide. It is for the reasons I have presented on behalf of Dr. Sonia Book and Santelises. The recommendation is to not approve the charter for Shining Willow Charter School Incorporated to operate Shining Willow Charter School.
I concur with the recommendation as stated.
I move that based upon the consideration of the recommendations and rationale of the CEO, the testimony given at the board work session, and the application and supplemental materials provided by applicants, that the board accept the CEO's recommendation as stated.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second, Reed.
Okay. I do need to offer if there are any, if there's any comment from board members prior to voting. So if any board member has comment or discussion. Seeing no hands, then I will call for the vote. So those in favor of the motion to accept the CEO's recommendation, Commissioner Bondima?
Yes.
Commissioner Brooks?
Yes.
Commissioner Griffin?
Yes.
Commissioner James?
Yes.
Commissioner McFadden?
Yes.
Commissioner Reed?
Yes.
Commissioner Richardson?
Yes.
Commissioner Roberts?
Yes.
And I am also in favor. And so this motion is approved. We have 9 in favor. Thank you. I want to thank the folks who submitted the application. I know that there's a great deal of work that went into that process. And please, do understand that that the vote is not saying that we don't appreciate the work that you did put forth. We have had applicants who have taken the feedback and come back later. But hopefully you will, seriously look at the feedback that was given in terms of the application as it was presented. And again, thank you for the concern and the commitment that you were showing to our families and our children in Baltimore. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Trinia. I also just want to briefly just acknowledge the work of the Charter and Operator-led Schools Advisory Board, who are volunteers. This is a heavy lift. It's a lot of time spent and reviewing this and really seriously considering the work that the applicants put forward. And so I just want to again just acknowledge their hard work in this process. So thank you, as well as my team. Sorry, my team, Kim Coleman. There's a lot of work into this. I also need to acknowledge that it's a lot to pull this together.
Oh, thank you, Ms. Alvarez, and thank you for the leadership also in terms of what you do with this office. So it never ends. We know you stop here and begin the next part of the process, but thank you so much. And it is an important role that we do. My one word of encouragement to anyone who's considering, there was a lot of thought that you all went through, the Charter, Advisory Board went through in terms of developing the initiatives that we really, the priorities that we are really looking for. So I would encourage folks to also please be mindful of those as we move forward, because those are areas that we really need to look for innovation and ideas for. So I would hope folks would take that very seriously also. So thank you again. Thanks to everyone.
Thank you.
At this point on our agenda, we are moving to board committee reports. And I know that Teaching and Learning Committee did meet. So I'm going to see if Commissioner McFadden would like to give us any highlights from that particular meeting.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to highlight some of the work that our staff has been doing for our children in city schools and in Baltimore. There were 3 presentations that we received on Tuesday in committee, and one was special education. We received an update around special education and the work that's been happening. And one thing that I found very interesting were these assessment centers that were established throughout the city to ensure that our young people, our children, our families, and our parents that needed some additional support were able to get it, even though our schools were, all of them were not open to receive students. So I thought that that was important so that we could continue the work for our young people who are receiving special education services or the potential to receive those services. I thought that that was a highlight. It's almost like, taking a bad situation and making the best of it, even in a global pandemic. So I definitely want to just appreciate Dr. Brooks, who is the Executive Director of Special Education, and her team. It's a collaborative, and not just that, there's a lot that is still happening, but that is one of the highlights from that presentation. And then also, we received a social studies curriculum update. And it's certainly going through some revision processes. I definitely just want to highlight the work that is happening around the Be More Me curriculum. A lot of project-based activities are the focus of that particular curriculum, and it is all about Baltimore. and Baltimore culture. And I think that that's really important. As the curriculum is being developed, one thing that we encourage staff to do in the committee meeting was to incorporate our young people in the curriculum development process, our students in that process. And staff took that feedback well, and I look forward to hearing those updates in the future around how our students' input supports our curriculum development process. And then finally, we received an update from our early childhood program. And I just want to say as a highlight that we have a new Judy Center at James Mosher. And we know the success of the Judy Center program, and we have several of them, but James Mosher definitely is an addition. Even during a pandemic, we were able to establish that program, that Judy Center. So that is certainly a highlight. And then finally, we received a pre-K enhancement grant from MSDE, primarily to support in-person support and transitional support for our early grades. So as we receive updates in the future around early childhood education, particularly as we transition into the fall, as we expand learning options, we know that we've seen quite a bit of a decline with our early childhood grades. And so to the work of the engagement staff, the engagement office, and our early childhood program, they've really been focused on meeting our parents and our families where they are as best as they can in the midst of a pandemic, so that we can get our hands on them, wrap our arms around our families, so that we can really ensure that our young people are learning and engaged in the learning process, particularly in our schools. So that is something that is certainly a highlight, a grant that we were awarded from MSDE to support that work. And certainly the rest, the procurement agenda was primarily in committee on Tuesday as well. So that is the update that I have. And also, if folks want to just go back and learn a little bit more about the work, I believe that all of the committee meetings are on YouTube to review. So that's my update.
Thank you, Commissioner McFadden. And I hope that the community has been seeing the blasts that have been out. I know I've been seeing it on Facebook regarding registration for pre-kindergarten and kindergarten. So this is the time for that to occur, and we would encourage any families that have students that are eligible to please get that done and get it done quickly.
Madam Chair, may I also take a point of privilege as the Chair of Teaching and Learning very quickly? I'm sure you'll probably mention it. I'm sure that you'll probably mention it, but this week is kicking off our graduation season for our high school graduates. And, you know, all of the commissioners will be attending those graduation ceremonies to wish our young people well. But I just want to say to all of our students, if you're listening, and then folks get the word out, this has been one heck of a year. And so many of our students have pushed through, are resilient, in spite of what a lot of negative press may be and what naysayers may say. Our young people are making significant strides in Baltimore, and this is certainly the time to celebrate them. And graduations are just that feel-good ceremony where we're able to celebrate our young people. So I just wanted to highlight that because we kick off, I believe tomorrow starts our graduations.
Thank you. Yes, I will be at a graduation tomorrow evening at 5 o'clock. I'm so excited. So yes, and congratulations to the young people. Congratulations to the families, the parents who have been supporting them. I know you're all excited to be there, and we're looking forward to hearing your claps and your cheers and seeing your smiles. But thank you so much, Commissioner McFadden. You do it so much better. I'm so happy when you go ahead and do that part for me. With that, I need to give you just the schedule of the upcoming meetings. The Operations Committee will be meeting on June the 15th. At 10:30 in the morning. This is still a virtual meeting. The Policy Committee will be meeting on that same day, June 15th. That's next week, actually, right? At 3:30 p.m. The Parent and Community Advisory Board, PCAB, will be meeting on June the 17th at 6:30 p.m. There will be a special public board meeting on June the 22nd at 3 p.m. It's a little earlier. In the month of June, sometimes we have to meet to be certain that we have all of the staffing pieces in place. There will be, the board will also be holding its annual business meeting on June the 22nd from beginning at 3:30. And the Teaching and Learning Committee will meet again on July the 6th. As a reminder, all of these meetings are virtual. We are hoping as a board to actually be, if you look at Commissioner Roberts and Commissioner McFadden, we're hoping to be back in that space for our August meeting, and so we're working toward that occurring. I believe I have reached the end of the agenda, and as I'm looking at time, other than any other announcements, I'm going to take a motion to adjourn if someone would like to propose it.
I move that we adjourn, Madam Chair.
So moved.
Thank you, Commissioner Reed. Is there a second?
Second, McFadden.
McFadden. Is there any objection? Hearing none, then that motion passes and we will adjourn for this evening. It is early. It is still light outside. The storm has passed, and so I'm going to encourage everyone to go out and get a breath of fresh air. Enjoy the evening. Thank you all for a great meeting. Thank you, everyone who joined with us. And this meeting is adjourned. Good night, everyone. Have a great evening.
Good night.